political journey in Nigeria to the Fourth Republic has come with characterizations of different interests from different quarters. And as Nigeria gears up for the 2027 general election, there is a need to understanding the ideological base of political parties of the country. Hello, dear. Thank you so very much for joining us on Political Affairs on Kama TV. My name is Chris Jacobs, and today I'm being joined by Honorable Godfrey Damgete, who is an APC stalwart, and he joins me to further the conversation. Honorable, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. I'd like to start, on this very premise by asking you, what do you make of Nigeria's democratic journey in the Fourth Republic? I understand that there has not been an interruption intermittently by the Nigerian military as we used to experience in the country, but a smooth ride since the return to democratic rule in the Fourth Republic. How would you describe that since 1999 up to date?
Thank you very much, Chris, for having me into this program today. I take it as a honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. To give my own take on this very matter of our political or democratic return from 1999 to date, I think Nigerians or democracy is working in Nigeria because for it to be sustainable and to remain to this moment, I think Nigerians or our leaders are trying. No country in the world, I know when I'm talking about our leaders trying, so many people might think otherwise, but there's no country in the world that has no challenge in one way or the other. But for us to sustain democracy to this moment, at least we are moving from one point to another in our democratic move.
All right, but with the crop of politicians we have today, will you say they are wearing the shoes of our founding fathers? Because if you look at the founding fathers, of our political journey, they are resolute, and of course they have these convictions as regard to party ideologies. But with the recent crop of politicians, will you say they are wearing the shoes of our founding fathers when it comes to political journey and conviction?
Yes, of course, but in a different manner, because each era has its own way of doing things. The way our forefathers ran their own lives, is quite different from the way our own generation also runs its own life. So if you look at it, at least there are so many successes that are recorded in our own era that, when after us now, after our own era, the people that may come before us may also make reference with us and say, yes, we have done something, very good that should be remembered, we should be remembered for. There are so many giant strides of developments that are recorded during this, our era. So I think we are doing well democratically.
All right, but looking at the system, has the system contributed to undermining the electoral system? What I mean here is that a lot of politicians today vie for elective offices because of how lucrative these offices are. For example, the National Assembly, Senator goes on with about 14 million monthly aside the allowances. House of Rep member, trickling it down to state houses of assembly. So we've seen a lot of young persons in Nigeria. But politics seem to be the easiest and the fastest way of making money. So unlike, our founding fathers who ventured into politics for the sole reason to better the country, but a lot of politicians in recent times join politics and vie for elective offices just to enrich themselves. The system seem not to be favorable to, electoral processes in Nigeria.
I don't think I would agree with you on this very point.
Yeah.
On politics is the most easiest thing that somebody goes into and makes money. Politics is never an easy thing, because if you enter politics, you should know that you must have a lion heart. There are so many challenges also associated to politics. So if somebody goes into politics, it's depending on your own conviction and how you want to pursue your destiny. It's the same thing like somebody who goes to university, study from being an undergraduate, finishes his MSc and PhD. There are so many stages. And even in politics, it's like that. There are so many difficulties that people face before they become anything. not that easy as any other person thinks. So it is, and there's nobody that is being selected that you should go into politics so that you make yourself rich or not. It is personal conviction, and if there's anybody elsewhere who thinks it is good enough to come into politics to change the system, the door is all open to any other person to come in. But it's not that easy, actually. It's not easy. Just like any other, any other destiny, pursuing any other part of destiny is difficult. That's the same way the politics is.
Yeah, but are you not worried that sometimes it is pretty difficult to separate between politics and governance? Are you not worried sometimes, with the inability of some of politicians to separate between politics and governance? Because the moment a politician assumes office, what he thinks next of is how to win the next election after 4 years. How do we separate, or should politicians separate politics from governance, thereby meeting the need of its citizens or constituency, delivering the dividends of democracy?
Yes, the two, they are interwoven, but they are still separated. Mostly if you hear our leaders, sometimes, people will begin to bring the pressure of another political era, like another tenure after, when they have not finished the one they are elected. So, but what really happens is you hear them say this is the time of governance, and that doesn't stop. It's them still going into politicking for next tenure, because these two you can't separate them. Even if the leader don't want to talk about the next era or next tenure, no matter how it is, people will keep on bringing suggestions and how to win, because all that is done, even in the governance or whatever, is to win the hearts of people and to have their favor and to be voted in the next tenure again.
Now, there's this concern, not just on the politicians, but of course on the electoral umpire, talking about INEC. With the experience Nigeria has had, in the last 2023 general elections, where as at then it was the most expensive election that was budgeted for, about 350 billion naira was budgeted for 2023 general election, which at the end of it, the federal government was able to just dish out 220 billion naira. Now, there were prior interviews with the former chairman of INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu, that emphatically told Nigerians that the use of beavers, which is an upgrade on the card reader, that the use of beavers, can be a game changer. It has the ability to identify you as a legitimate or authentic card bearer of the vote, and then accredit you as well as transmit the result electronically. Now, what do you make of the controversial Electoral Act reforms, particularly the transmission of result, that even in recent times have generated a lot of back and forth on the floor of the House?
Yes, Chris, as I said earlier, each time, this life we live, always there's upgrade. There's upgrade from time to time. So if in the last election, the use of beavers was the best option, because there's no need for transmission of electronic transmission of result. That one did not come up, and maybe because we have not grown to that level, but now we have grown to that level, and that's why the INEC found it better way. They found it as a better way of conducting the 2027 general election, and then I think that's why they brought it up. So in my own take here, I think it's the best way. It's the best way if it is for us to upgrade from the use of beavers to direct transmission of votes
electronically. But why are some politicians adamant? Why are they afraid of the transmission of result electronically? Because looking at the budget, 873 billion for the 2027 general election, and yet some senators are adamant, they are back and forth about it. Why are they afraid? I'd like you to ponder on this. We'll take a short break. When we return, then we'll build on this, whether or not those senators politicians, have the fear of uncertainty, and of course, perhaps they have some skeleton in their cupboard, so they wouldn't want the result to be transmitted electronically. Just ponder on this. We'll come back after this short timeout. All right, you're watching Political Affairs on Karma TV. We'll take a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Join us again. And for those of you following the conversation on Facebook page, I'd like you to send your comment, your question, and suggestion to the comment section. Probably we'll get back to you in response of the questions. Join us again. Alright, glad to know you're there. If you have just joined us, you're watching Political Affairs on Karma TV. I've been speaking with Honorable Godfrey Domgete. He is an APC stalwart. And of course, the first part of the conversation has been very intriguing. Now, before the break, I asked you this very critical question. Looking at the budget for 2027 general election that is higher with about 150% compared to the last 2023 general election of 350 billion. But this one is 873.97 billion naira budgeted for the 2027 general election. Is INEC not asking too much?
The issue here is not the issue of how much the budget, how much the money is. Our own concern here is how well the elections should be, because the country has the money to spend on that, and election is very important. It's an important matter in this country. So, and as you said earlier, some politicians are opposing it. All of us, all the politicians has their own different constituencies. So if one is not sure of himself, definitely there must be an opposition. And those who if you look at it, there are some who are in support of it in the National Assembly. Yeah. That's to tell you, all of us have different interests. All the politicians have different interests pertaining the use of the direct transmission of electronic transmission of results.
All right. Now, you are of the All Progressive Congress, the ruling party, as it were, and you are also an ally and also, a loyalist to Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor. Now, there is this rumor that is making a round that Governor Fintiri may likely defect to the All Progressive Congress. And the fear of the uncertainty now is that if Fintiri defect to the All Progressive Congress, he might assume superintendence of the party. And a lot of APC stalwarts are not happy about it. Are you worried? Are you also part of those who are skeptical and scared that should Right Honorable Amadou Fintiri defect to the All Progressive Congress, the ruling party? He might assume superintendence, thereby, negating the place of Malam Nuhu Ribadu as the leader of the party here in Adamawa State.
I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried at any point, because Malam Nuhu Ribadu is an incredible leader. He's somebody who the country is proud of. As of yesterday, when the president even came to Adamawa State, made it publicly that Nuhu Ribadu is a great leader that even the presidency are very, very much proud of. So I don't think Malam Nuhu Ribadu has even the time to contend on leadership of the party in the state. A leader is always a leader. He's an outstanding person, and even the governor of the state has done a lot. He's a man of like mind. He's an outstanding leader as well. Me, I look at it in this aspect as the coming together of two great forces to form a formidable force that cannot be broken by anyone. So if Fintiri comes to the party, it's a kudos to the party, and it's a welcome idea. And I don't think there's any there's any bone of contention that will come up in
But there are some members of the APC that are not cool with that. You know, the likes of Kwatam, who contested for elective office several times on a different political platform, and also there are other members of the APC that are not happy. Should Governor Fintiri defect to the APC, that I say he might assume the fear of his assumption of superintendence over the party is what they are afraid of.
But that's his own way of viewing the matter. But in my own case, I look at it as a welcome development. And I looked at it as somebody like Nuri Bado will never have time to be worried of that, because he is an outstanding leader, as I said earlier. He's somebody who is focused on his given assignment. And the aim here is, how do we deliver Adamawa State for Mr. President 2027? And how do we win also Adamawa State? So if somebody like Fintiri, who has done incredibly, who has worked and have left a legacy, a long-lasting legacy in Adamawa State, is to come to the party and join forces with us, I think nobody should be worried of that, except if you're not sure of yourself.
All right. Nobody should be worried of that, except if you're not sure of yourself. All right. There is this issue again, which is very critical and sensitive. The last election, the running mate, of course, of President Bola Tinubu has generated a lot of issues, particularly in the Christendom, where the Muslim ticket, and now there is this little bit of, insinuations whether or not Tinubu might not continue with Kashim Shettima as his running mate, intending or thereby choosing a Christian from the northeastern part of Nigeria as a running mate in order not to infuriate the Christian community as it happened during the last 2023 general elections. And while this thought was flickering, coming to being, some say if he chooses a Christian as a running mate from the northeastern part of Nigeria, he may likely not win the 2027 general election. Are you also of same view from these same quarters?
Not really. Me, I'm part of the people advocating for inclusivity, and also this is democracy, and we are all Nigerians. And we are all, and democracy is a game that carries all along. So I don't believe a particular group of people should be left out for any reason. And if anyone says elections cannot be won with a Christian as running mate, I don't think such person is saying the truth, because where did the person carry out his tests to be sure that elections cannot be won with a Christian running mate? Moreover, we have a lot of outstanding Christians who have done well in their political, in their leaderships in this country. We have seen them; they have done well. Prominent people in the north, especially the northeast. We have people who a Christian who served as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who has a wide coverage politically, nationally. He has, he did well. During their time, there was no time that a government was checkmated like their own period. If you look at the history of this, the National Assembly in this country, that was the only time that the National Assembly, stands out to challenge the executives, to tell them the truth. That was the time. We have people like them in this, in the Northeast, and even in this country. So, I don't believe anybody will come up with his own, way of analyzing or selfish interests and begin to say Christians cannot cannot serve as running mate. I don't believe, and I don't trust, and I don't agree with that at all.
All right. Now, with a new drive, where we see young persons venturing into politics, I know during the regime of late Muhammadu Buhari, he signed a bill not too young to run. And it seems President Bola Tinubu is redefining, the not too young to run bill, giving chances to young Nigerians, to vie for elective offices. Are you also intending to run for any elective office, whether nationally or in the state here at the moment?
Of course, we are still making consultations, and we are still always together with our people. We hear their cries, and we are still consulting and checking the way. If it if our people insist we run, and if they don't, and if we discover there are better people that should run for that office, and we have another way, we support and we make sure that democracy or our people have the dividends of democracy. That's our aim.
All right, there should be a driving force to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's no better way to end this conversation than now, Honorable Godfrey Domgete. Thank you so very much for finding that accommodation. This is just a part one of the conversation. We'll definitely have a build up on this. Should your consultations work, then you will come back and tell us that your people have agreed that you should run for elective office.
Yes,
thank you so very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, viewers, this is where we drop the anchor on the show today. Thank you so very much for being with us from start to finish. Join us again same time as we come with a fresh edition of the program. Until then, stay safe. God bless Nigeria. My name is Chris Jacobs. And for those of you following the conversation on our Facebook page, thank you so very much. Send your comments, questions, and suggestions to the comment section, and we hope to see you next. God bless Nigeria.